Guys, I'm not an AI. So crazy I even have to say that. That is exactly what an AI would say if they were trying to trick somebody into thinking that they weren't an AI. I don't know, man. You're just going to have to trust me on this one. Anyways, we're going to start remodeling my base. Whenever I started this world, I originally had a wooden house that ended up being burnt down. I kind of just quickly rebuilt it, not out of wood. So now I actually want to start remodeling it, rebuilding it, and making it look nice. I've got some really good stories today, so buckle in and let's get started. It's from r/scary stories from user Mr. Unheimlich. It's titled, "My town is haunted by a witch. If she knocks on your door, you must let her in." I live in an old New England town. Legend has it that for 300 years it has been haunted by Zuriel, the witch. We learn about Zuriel on school grounds. Older kids teach the younger, voices low and eyes glimmering. She will knock on your door in the form of a traveler asking for a glass of water. You will know it's her because despite claiming that she is terribly thirsty, she will not touch the water you offer her. There are 5 rules you must follow when Zuriel knocks on your door. You must let her in. You must be friendly at all times. You must not show that you are afraid of her. You must not let her out of your sight. You must not let her pass the first room of your house. When someone dies in a domestic accident, whispers circulate that they received a visit from Zuriel and didn't follow the rules. Some claim to have met her and survived, but because she changes appearance every time, accounts are impossible to verify. Many grown-ups would deny believing in Zuriel, but when entering a house in our town, one will usually find a glass and bottle of water kept by the front door, just in case a stranger stops by. I am a skeptic, or rather, I used to be until recently. Sure, Zuriel scared me as a child. When I heard someone knocking at my parents' door, I would run to my room and lock myself in. Zuriel never came. As I got older, I did my research on her. It turns out that a woman by the name of Zuriel really lived in our town, according to historical records. She was a spinster of most ill-favored countenance, who lived alone at the edge of the woods. Long suspected of being troubled by an unclean spirit, she was much disliked by the townsfolk. They complained that she continually intruded upon property. In 1734, after Zuriel had not been seen for weeks, a pious old woman went to check on her. She found Zuriel's decomposing body lying in her shed, her throat cut almost to the bone. Although some young men had been heard declaring they would rid the town of the foul witch, they were never prosecuted. This haunting nonsense was the result of a sad page of history, I concluded. After I married and moved into a new house with my husband, he insisted on keeping a glass and a bottle of water by the front door. I didn't want to, but I figured it wasn't a matter worth fighting over. Last Friday, at around 3 p.m., I had just put my son down for a nap when I heard knocking at the door. I absent-mindedly opened the door to a woman of about 40 who I had never seen before. She was in hiking clothes. Not surprising. The area is known for its nature trails. "Hi, can I help you?" "Hi, I'm so sorry to bother you." A stylish bob encircled her pleasant face. Even with sweat purling on her forehead, she looked polished. I thought she must have come from a big city. "May I ask you for a glass of water? My bottle is empty, and I am so very thirsty." She smiled at me apologetically. "A hiker asking for a glass of water. That's it. You must let her in." "Of course, please come in." "Oh, that's so kind of you. Are you sure I'm not bothering you?" "No bother at all." She bashfully walked through the door I held open for her. A split-second thought crossed my mind. Slam the door in her face. I didn't, of course. In the blink of an eye, the hiker was inside my house. She hovered by the entrance politely. I turned towards the kitchen, then remembered the glass of water and the bottle sitting right next to me. You must not let her out of your sight. Well, why not? As I poured the water, she glided from the entrance to the couch and sat down. I didn't like that. She must have noticed, because a flicker of guilt tightened her features. You must be friendly at all times. I responded with a bright smile, handing her the glass. That's when I noticed that she had no backpack, no pouch, not even a water bottle. I took a deep breath to push down the panic that had started swelling up. I sat in front of her. "You've been hiking?" I chirped. "I just did the mountain loop," she replied enthusiastically. "It was very pretty." Without drinking any of it, she set the glass on her lap. "It's one of my favorites," I responded. Her fingers gripped the glass. She didn't drink it. "And it's such a nice day today," I continued. "It was lovely, almost too hot." Her face beamed with sweat. A drop rolled from her forehead to her chin. It fell into her lap. She still did not drink. My eyes snapped up to her. She was staring at me, staring at her. "You must be friendly at all times." I laughed a horrendous laugh. "Yeah, I love it when it's hot." She laughed along. Inside me, the adult woman disappeared, and I became that little girl who wanted to lock herself in her room again. "Have you been in the area before?" I asked, forcing my voice to sound even. "It's my first time visiting," she responded cheerfully. "Have you been living here long?" "I was born here," I said. Then, fearing I was lacking in amiability, I exclaimed, "Wouldn't want to live anywhere else." "Of course, such a lovely place, and everyone seems so nice." Her gaze shifted to a framed photo of me, my husband, and my son. "What a cutie," she whispered, narrowing her eyes. Revulsion twisted my stomach. Smash the frame in her face, I thought. I didn't, of course. I sat perfectly still and pushed out a timid "thank you." She turned to me with a proud smile. "You know, I have a son the same age. He's with his dad now. Unfortunately, we're divorced, but we maintain a good friendship. That's so important for a child." "Oh, yeah, so important," I stammered, taken aback. She stood up, leaving the glass on the coffee table. "Well, so sorry for bothering you. I'll be on my way before it gets dark." A wave of relief rushed through me. Of course, no bother at all. She trotted to the front door. I had to stifle a laugh. Awoken from a bad dream, I was back in the land of the living. "Hope you enjoy the rest of your trip." Her hand pushed down the door handle, then let it back up. "One last thing," she said. "May I use your restroom?" Cold dread enveloped me before her words even reached my brain. "You must not let her pass the first room of your house." "I'm sorry, but the restroom is out of order." "Is that so?" she asked, as she breezed right back to the seat in front of me. "Why?" My pulse went wild. "It's clogged. We've had an awkward accident earlier," I cackled. She winked. "Whoops. I can have a look if you'd like. I'm pretty savvy with small repairs." "Oh no, you don't have to. There's a public restroom right across the street, in the park." I pointed at the window. My hand trembled. It was already dark outside. That was impossible. Sunset was supposed to be hours away, and she hadn't been in my house for more than a few minutes. "I would love to repay your hospitality," she insisted, eyes wide and eager. "My husband is about to come home from work. He'll do it. You know men." I leaned towards her, displaying the most conniving smile I could muster. They like to feel useful. She played along. "I get it. Since my husband left, I've had to learn to do it all by myself." "I admire your independence." "Thank you for saying that. It means a lot." She seemed genuinely flattered. I wasn't doing too bad, I thought. A piercing cry arose from upstairs. My son had woken up. He is an anxious baby. At 2 years old, he has only just started to sleep on his own. Whenever he wakes up and doesn't find us, he goes into a panic. I almost shot from my seat, but managed to reel myself back in. "Don't you want to go to him?" she asked me gently. "You must not let her out of your sight." "That's okay. He needs to get used to it." He had a way of sounding like something absolutely terrible was happening, which it was. He screamed. His voice broke, but he kept on screaming. What if he was actually hurt? She sat perfectly still, grinning at me. "Are you sure he's okay?" Her question sounded somewhat like a threat. You must not let her out of your sight. I nodded vigorously. We're training him to sleep on his own. Listening to the pleas of my hurting baby was near unbearable. I reminded myself of all the people, all the children who had died in tragic circumstances. He broke his neck tripping down the stairs. She choked on her food. The little one drank from a bottle of bleach. They were visited by Zuriel, the rumors always said, and they didn't follow the rules. I've never seen a mother like you, she said. I ignored the provocation. How about your little one? I had to raise my voice over my son's cries. Does he sleep on his own? She lit up at the mention of her child. He sleeps like an angel. My daughter, on the other hand, is like yours. She wanted to be held all the time. You have a daughter too? Yes, I do, she snapped, as if I was doubting her. My son abruptly went silent. That alarmed me even more. Why did he stop? I furiously wanted to go check on him. See, I said instead. He calmed down. You're a very interesting woman, she responded, and shuffled forward. Her knees almost touched mine. I'm really enjoying getting to know you. I didn't budge, swallowing my disgust. Me too. It's nice to see a new face around here. Maybe, I jumped into the abyss, maybe we could be friends. Her eyebrows shot up, her eyes widened, her lips parted. I would love that, she breathed. A rush of emotion flushed her cheeks. A web of red veins flared beneath her skin, then began to swell, morphing into elongated red warts. You must not show that you are afraid of her. What did you think of the hike? I spluttered, desperate to fill the silence. It was amazingly lovely, she trilled, while one of her eyes turned gray. What else do you suggest I do in the area? I held on to that question like a life raft. If you love nature, I would recommend the National Wildlife Refuge and paddleboarding on the river. Her hair vanished one by one, leaving only a few disheveled clumps on a bald head. You must not show that you are afraid of her. A walk downtown is great for shopping. Aunt Rita's kitchen serves the best clam chowder in town. Her teeth blackened. Strands of yellow saliva stretched between the upper and lower arcade. I waged war against every one of my muscles not to look away. For culture lovers, the local museum has great artifacts. One side of her face went moldy. A worm wriggled out of her ear and slid inside her eye socket. I smiled hard. And let's not forget the Civil War battleground. A slit appeared on her throat, from side to side. Dark blood came pouring out, inundating her clothes, my couch, my carpet. Her head fell backwards. The wound was spread apart like two halves of a steak, exposing her sliced-off windpipe. Only a thin layer of skin kept the head from rolling away. Yet, from an absurd angle, her one eye was still set on me. My smile did not falter. You can always catch a performance at the Arts Center. The lights flickered. My personal favorites are the dance shows. All the lights went out with a pop, except the overhead light. It flickered desperately. The thought of being alone in the dark with her was so terrifying, my heart nearly stopped. You must not show that you are afraid of her. I thought about my son sleeping peacefully in his crib, the sun rising on the ocean, a fluffy kitten drinking from a bowl of milk. For drinks, there's a little bar by the river. The lights went out. I opened my mouth to scream. In the blink of an eye, the lights came back on. I sucked in the scream before it could ring out. You must not show that you're afraid of her. She looked like a preppy 40-year-old lady hiker again. No sign of a neck wound. Her clothes were clean. So were my couch and carpet. Outside, the day was bright again. I allowed myself a breath of relief. Maybe this was it. I passed the test. She would be gone now. Thank you for that, she said softly. Since there's so much to do around here, maybe I should stay a few more days. My throat tightened. What a great idea. She looked around the room pensively. Do you have a guest room? I would love to stay if you'll have me. Despair hooked its fingers into my insides. We don't have a guest room, unfortunately. I would have loved to have you stay with us. That's a shame. What if I slept on the couch? I would not want you to be uncomfortable. I don't need much. This looks perfectly comfortable. My son is a rambunctious kid. So, didn't I tell you I'm a mom too? Yes. You don't believe me? Yes, of course. I was losing ground, and I felt my energy leaving me. It almost sounds like you're making up excuses not to have me. Didn't you say you wanted to be friends? Yes, of course. Mom? I had not heard him come in. My son was standing in the doorframe. He clutched his teddy bear, chubby cheeks streaked with dried-up tears. She looked just as startled as I was. He must have climbed out of his toddler bed, I said, forcing cheerfulness. I held out my arms to him. Come over here. Instead, he directed his unsteady little feet towards her. You must not show that you are afraid of her. Hello, little man, she exclaimed, baring her teeth at him. I was now trembling from head to toe. She stretched out her hand and wiggled her long nailed fingers. My son wobbled closer to her. I wanted to scream, yank him away from her, run, but because I didn't know what the right next thing to do, I sat, still paralyzed. You must not show that you're afraid of her. Would you like me to stay here with you? She said in a cringe-worthy baby voice. No, no, say no, I yelled inside my head. My son gave her a toothless smile, that smile of pure delight only little children are capable of. She widened her grin, pushed her demonic hand further towards him. The room around me started shaking, every nerve in my body twisted. My son put his teddy bear in her outstretched hand, like a friendship offering. Time stopped. Her mouth trembled, smile morphing into a sorrowful grimace. She gripped the teddy bear and brought it to her heart. Finally, she let out a long, painful breath. I am sure your child wants his mommy to himself, she finally murmured. I'll be on my way. She slowly rose and set the teddy bear on the couch. It was great to have. Thank you for your kindness. She ever so lightly stroked my hand with her fingers, and then, just as swiftly as she came, she was gone. It's been 7 days since she visited. I've been watching my husband and son like a hawk, expecting them to trip, fall, get burned, or some other terrible thing. No one got hurt. Life is beginning to feel normal again. But around 3 p.m. every afternoon, I feel a pang of pain on my hand, right where she touched me. Yeah, this lady's traumatized for the rest of her life. Yeah, that was a creepy one. I feel like now she's just going to be waiting for this lady to knock on her door every day after this for the rest of her life. So, yeah, that's some good old trauma. All right, let's get on with the next one. It's from r/scary stories from user Gamal Frank. My father's rotary phone rings every night at 3 a.m. I finally followed the cord, and I wish I hadn't. The only way I can describe it, it's not just the television, which sits in the corner of the living room like a gray, unblinking eye, hissing that white noise at a volume just low enough to be a vibration in your teeth rather than a sound in your ears. It's the house itself. The air here hangs suspended, thick with the smell of menthol rub, dust that has settled since the 90s, and the distinct sweet rot scent of old paper decomposing in damp corners. Moving back in wasn't a choice so much as a lack of options. My career had imploded in the city, a slow-motion car crash of layoffs and bad luck, and my father's health had taken a nosedive that the neighbors couldn't ignore anymore. They called me after he was found wandering the lawn in his underwear, screaming at a squirrel that he claimed was transmitting government secrets. Dementia, the doctors said, mixed with a general shutting down of the systems. He was physically frail, a husk of the man who used to terrify me with his booming voice, but his mind was the real casualty. It had retreated into a fortress of confusion and silence, leaving only a shell that stared at the snowy screen of a television set that hadn't been connected to a cable box in a decade. The house was a time capsule, but the kind you regret opening. Every surface was covered. Stacks of Reader's Digest from 1988, towers of yellowing newspapers, ceramic figurines of shepherdesses with chipped noses, and boxes of unidentified rusted hardware. The clutter created narrow canyons through the living room and hallway, pathways you had to navigate sideways. And then there was the phone. He refused to have a cell phone in the house. He claimed the signal scrambled his thoughts, made the buzzing inside his head louder. I tried to argue with him during the first week, pulling my smartphone out of my pocket to show him it was harmless. But he went into such a violent fit of trembling and weeping that I eventually just turned it off and threw it in my suitcase. To communicate with the outside world, to order his prescriptions, to call the pharmacy, to maybe, eventually, find a job, we relied on the landline. It was a rotary, a heavy, black, bakelite beast that sat on a dedicated table in the hallway, the centerpiece of a shrine made of phone books and message pads that hadn't been written on in years. It was connected to the wall by a curly, frayed cord that looked like a dried earthworm. The first month was just the routine. I'd wake up, change his sheets, sponge bathe him while he stared past me at some invisible horizon, and then park him in his armchair in front of the static. I'd spoon feed him oatmeal that he barely swallowed. The isolation was absolute. The suburbs out here aren't the friendly kind where neighbors wave. They are vast, silent grids of dying lawns and closed blinds. The calls started in the middle of the second month. I'm a light sleeper. The silence of the house usually kept me on edge, the settling of the foundation sounding like footsteps. But when the phone rang that first time, it shattered the night like a hammer through glass. It was a physical sound, that mechanical bell. Bring, bring. I jolted up, heart hammering against my ribs, squinting at the glowing red numbers on my digital clock. 3 a.m. exactly. I stumbled out of the spare room, navigating the hallway clutter by memory and the pale moonlight filtering through the grimy windows. The phone kept ringing, an insistent, angry sound. My father's door was closed. He didn't stir. He slept like the dead, aided by a heavy dose of sedatives. I picked up the receiver, the plastic cold and greasy against my ear. Hello? My voice was a croak, thick with sleep. Static. A crackling, popping interference, like a radio tuned between stations during a thunderstorm. Hello, is anyone there? I asked again, annoyance beginning to override the adrenaline. It's dark, a voice whispered. I froze. It was a child. A boy, maybe 7 or 8 years old. The voice was trembling so hard the words were barely coherent, wet with tears and snot. Who is this? I gripped the phone tighter. Where are your parents? The rabbit man, the boy whimpered. The audio quality was terrible, fading in and out as if he were calling from the bottom of a well. He says I have to wait in the dark room. He said I was bad. A cold prickle danced down the back of my neck. Listen to me, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You need to hang up and call 911. Do you know how to do that? My head hurts, the boy sobbed, his voice pitching up into a jagged whine. The rabbit man hit the wall. He dragged me. I want to go home, please. Where are you? Tell me where you are. I don't know, he gasped. It smells like oil and dirt. I can't see my hands. Stay on the line, I said, looking around the dark hallway as if help might materialize from the shadows. I'm going to call for help on another line, okay? Just stay. The line clicked. Then the hum of the dial tone. I stood there for a long time, the receiver still pressed to my ear, listening to the drone of the disconnected line. I eventually hung up and dialed *69, hoping to trace the last call. The service you are attempting to use is not available from this line, a robotic female voice informed me. Of course, the landline package was probably the bare minimum, untouched since the 80s. I sat on the floor beside the phone table, hugging my knees. It had to be a prank. Kids these days, with their apps and their boredom, they probably found a list of active landlines and were seeing who they could scare. It was a script. The Rabbit Man. It sounded like something from an internet creepypasta. But the fear in that voice, it stuck with me. It was the wet, gasping quality of the breathing, the sheer exhaustion and the terror. The next day, the house felt heavier. The dust seemed to hang lower in the air. My father was particularly difficult, refusing to open his mouth for his medication. He kept turning his head toward the hallway, his milky eyes widening. But when I asked him what he wanted, he just mumbled nonsense words. Soft, he said once. Soft ears. I ignored it. He said a lot of things. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting. 3 a.m., the phone rings again. I was at it before the second ring finished. Hello? I'm thirsty, said the same voice, weaker this time. It's so hot in here. Who are you calling? I demanded, skipping the pleasantries. Is this a game? I missed the fireworks, the boy whispered, ignoring me completely. He sounded delirious. Mom said we could watch the fireworks after the rides, at the Millennium Fair. I wanted to see the big wheel. My stomach dropped. The Millennium Fair? I asked. My voice was a whisper. The rabbit man gave me a balloon. The boy continued, his words slurring. He said he had a surprise, under the stage. But we went down. We went down so far. Kid, listen to me. The Millennium Fair, that isn't happening now. I want my mom, he cried, a sudden piercing shriek that made me pull the phone away from my ear. It's too tight. The walls are too tight. Click. I stood in the hallway, shivering, despite the summer heat trapped in the house. The Millennium Fair. I remembered it. Everyone in the county remembered it. It was a massive traveling carnival that had come through the state capitol to celebrate the turn of the century. New Year's Eve, 1999. I was in high school then. I remembered the lights, the sheer scale of it. But that was 26 years ago. If this was a prank, it was incredibly specific and incredibly cruel. Why reference a fair that happened 26 years ago? Was the kid reading a script, or was it a recording? I went to the kitchen and made coffee, my hands shaking as I poured the water. I spent the hours until dawn sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the phone in the hallway. I tried to rationalize it. A recording made more sense, someone playing an old tape over the line, but the boy had responded to the flow of conversation, even if he didn't answer my questions directly. When the sun came up, I drove to the library in the next town over, the only place with decent Wi-Fi. I needed to verify my memory. I searched Millennium Fair kidnapping. The results were sparse. It had been a chaotic event. Too many people. Too much alcohol. Y2K panic mixed with celebration. There were reports of fights, a few drug arrests, lost children who were found within hours. But there was one cold case. Michael Miller, age 7. Last seen near the exit of the fairgrounds, wearing a blue windbreaker and holding a red balloon. Witnesses reported seeing him walking with a costumed character, though no mascots were scheduled for that area of the park. I stared at the grainy photo of the boy on the screen. He had a gap-toothed smile and messy hair. 7 years old. The boy on the phone sounded 7. I went back to the house with a knot of dread in my gut so tight it made it hard to breathe. The house smelled worse today, a sharp, acrid tang of ammonia cutting through the dust. My father was sitting exactly where I'd left him, bathed in the static glow. Dad? I asked, walking into the living room. He didn't blink. Dad, did you ever hear about a boy going missing years ago at a fair? Slowly, agonizingly, his head turned. His neck crunched, a dry, brittle sound. He looked at me, and for a second, the fog in his eyes seemed to clear, replaced by a sharp, predatory lucidness that I hadn't seen in years. Everyone goes missing eventually, he rasped. Then he turned back to the TV and let out a long, wheezing laugh that turned into a cough. I decided then that I wouldn't answer the phone again. It was doing something to me. It was making the shadows in the corner of the room look like crouching figures. It was making the silence of the house sound like held breath. If it was a prank, I was feeding it. If it was something else, I didn't want to let it in. For the next 3 nights, the phone rang at 3 a.m. I lay in bed, pillow wrapped around my head, counting the rings. It always rang exactly 10 times, then silence. But the silence was worse, because in the silence, I started hearing other things. Sounds coming from the inside of the house. A, s- a soft scraping sound, like fabric dragging over wood. It seemed to come from the ceiling. By the fourth day of ignoring the calls, the atmosphere in the house had become unbearable. The air felt pressurized. My father was agitated, rocking back and forth in his chair, muttering about leaks and patches. I needed to do something productive. I needed to exert some control over this rotting environment. I decided to tackle the attic. The attic hatch was in the hallway, right above the phone table. I hadn't been up there since I was a child. It was a forbidden zone, the place where my father stored his projects. He was a handyman by trade, a tinkerer. He fixed things: toasters, radios, lawnmowers. I pulled the cord, and the folding ladder creaked down, releasing a shower of dust and dead flies. I climbed up, coughing, clicking on the single bare bulb that hung from the rafters. The attic was stiflingly hot, smelling of baked pine and fiberglass insulation. It was crammed with boxes, just like the rest of the house, but these were older: wooden crates, metal footlockers. I started moving things around, looking for space, looking for anything that could be thrown away. I found boxes of old tubes for radios, jars of rusted nails, a collection of license plates from the 70s. And then I found the trunk. It was pushed all the way into the eaves, hidden behind a stack of water-damaged insulation rolls. It was an old steamer trunk, heavy and bound in leather that had cracked like a dry riverbed. I shouldn't have opened it. I knew that the moment my hand touched the latch. The metal was cold, unnaturally so for how hot the attic was. I popped the latches. They groaned in protest. I threw the lid back. The smell hit me first. It was the smell of the garage: motor oil, grease, gasoline, mixed with something biological: sweat, dried saliva, unwashed hair. Lying inside the trunk, folded haphazardly, was a suit. It was made of a coarse, gray, synthetic fur that had matted and clumped with age and grime. There were dark stains on the chest and stomach, stiff and crusty. I reached out, my fingers trembling, and pulled it up. It was a rabbit suit, but not a cute Easter bunny. This was something homemade, something stitched together with fishing line and desperation. The headpiece was heavy, made of a papier-mâché covered in the same matted fur. The ears were long and asymmetrical, one bent sharply in the middle as if broken. The eyes were empty sockets, rimmed with red felt. The mouth was a fixed, jagged grin cut into the mask, revealing a mesh screen behind it that was clogged with something dark. I dropped it. I dropped it like it was burning. The rabbit man. The boy's voice echoed in my head. I backed away, scrambling over the boxes, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I couldn't breathe. The air in the attic was suddenly sucked out, replaced by the vacuum of realization. My father the handyman, the man who could fix anything. I scrambled down the ladder, nearly falling the last few feet. I hit the hallway floor and looked at the phone. It sat there, silent, accusing. I ran into the living room. My father was there, bathed in the static. "Dad," I said, my voice shaking so hard it distorted the word. He didn't move. "Dad, what is in the attic?" I shouted. "What is that suit?" He stopped rocking. The static hissed. He slowly turned his chair. He didn't use his feet. He just shifted his weight. The old wood of the chair groaning. He faced me. His eyes were clear again. Lucid. Horribly, terrifyingly lucid. He looked at me with a mixture of pity and annoyance, like I was a child interrupting an important meeting. "I had to hide this part of me," he said. His voice was strong, devoid of the tremulous wheeze of the last few months. He was broken. I stared at him, my blood running cold. Who was broken? "The boy," my father said. He wouldn't stop crying. I tried to fix him. I tried to make him quiet, but he was broken inside. He smiled. It wasn't a fatherly smile. It was a baring of teeth, yellow and long. So I put him where the noise wouldn't bother me. I stumbled back, bile rising in my throat. You killed him? I fixed the problem, he said, turning back to the TV. Now, be quiet. The show is starting. He dissolved back into the slump, the clarity vanishing as quickly as it had come. I ran to the kitchen. I needed to call the police. I grabbed my cell phone from my bag. Dead battery, of course. I hadn't charged it in weeks. I looked at the hallway, the rotary phone. I couldn't touch it. I couldn't go near it, but I had to. I had to call 911. I approached the phone like it was a bomb. I lifted the receiver. Silence, no dial tone. I tapped the hook. Nothing, dead air. I checked the wall jack. The plastic clip was snapped in, tight. Come on, I whispered, panic rising. Come on. I followed the cord. It wound from the back of the phone, coiled across the table, and dropped behind it. I pulled the table away from the wall. The cord didn't go into the wall jack. The jack on the wall was empty, painted over. This was new. When did this happen? The cord from the phone went down. It went through a crudely drilled hole in the floorboards, right next to the baseboard. My mind couldn't process it. I had been getting calls. I had heard the ringing. I had spoken to the boy. I fell to my knees. I grabbed the cord and pulled. It was taut, anchored to something below. I needed to see. I didn't want to, but the compulsion was a physical force, a hook in my navel pulling me forward. I ran to the garage and grabbed a pry bar. I came back, the sound of my breathing loud and ragged in the silent house. My father was humming in the living room, a low, discordant tune. I jammed the pry bar into the gap between the floorboards where the wire disappeared. The wood was old, but the nails screamed as they gave way. I levered up one board, then another. The smell rushed up at me. There was a space between the floor joists, but it wasn't just a crawl space. It had been modified, lined. Egg cartons, layers and layers of them, glued to the joist and the subfloor, and acoustic foam, and old carpet scraps. It was a soundproof box, a coffin buried in the architecture of the house. I shone a flashlight from the hallway down into the hole. The space was small, cramped, maybe 3 feet deep and 4 feet long. In the center of the nest, laying on a bed of filthy rags, was a skeleton. It was small. The bones were yellowed, delicate. It was wearing the tattered remains of the blue windbreaker. And in its skeletal hand, gripped tight, was the other end of the phone cord. It wasn't plugged into anything. The wires were stripped, wrapped around the finger bones of the skeleton's hand, rusted and fused to the calcium. The receiver of a toy phone, a Fisher-Price plastic thing, red and blue, lay near the skull. But the cord connected the real phone in the hallway to the boy's hand. I stared at it, the physics of it, the impossibility of it. And then, the phone in the hallway, the phone that was currently disconnected from the wall, the phone whose wire ended in the grip of a 26-year-old corpse. It rang. The sound vibrated through the floorboards, through my knees, into my teeth. I looked down into the hole. The jaw of the skull was open, fixed in an eternal scream. I didn't answer it. I couldn't. I backed away, scrambling on my hands and feet, crab walking away from the hole, away from the hallway. I scrambled into the living room. My father was standing now. He wasn't looking at the TV. He was looking at the hallway. He looked at me, and his face was full of a terrible childlike confusion. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. The ringing didn't stop. It got louder. "He's loud today," my father said, covering his ears. "He's so loud. I thought I fixed it. I thought I made the room quiet." The ringing wasn't coming from the phone anymore. It was coming from under the floor. It was coming from the walls. It was coming from the attic. "I tried to tell you," the kid's voice suddenly whispered, but from the static on the TV. I spun around. The screen was no longer just snow. Shapes were forming in the black and white chaos. A figure, tall, wearing long ears. "I tried to tell you." The TV hissed. the volume rising, screaming the words, "It's dark." My father started to scream, a high, thin wail that matched the pitch of the static. I ran. I didn't grab my keys. I didn't grab my bag. I smashed through the front door, stumbling out into the humid night air of the suburbs. I ran until my lungs burned, until I was 3 streets away, standing under the buzzing sodium light of a street lamp. I looked back toward the house. It sat there, dark and silent, against the night sky. But even from here, 3 blocks away, I could feel it. A vibration in the ground, a rhythmic, mechanical pulse. The phone was still ringing. I'm in a motel now. I walked until I found a gas station and called a cab. I haven't called the police yet. I don't know what to say. My father is a killer. The phone line is connected to a ghost. I'm sitting on the edge of the motel bed. There's a phone on the nightstand, a modern one, a generic beige block with buttons. I unplugged it as soon as I walked in. I pulled the cord right out of the wall. But I'm staring at it because 5 minutes ago, the red message light started blinking, and I can hear it faintly coming from the earpiece sitting in its cradle. Static and a whisper. I found a new wire. Wow. Okay, that one is going in the top 5. That was an insane story. Guys, let me know what you would do if you found out that your dad liked to wear a bunny suit and go to a fair and kill a kid. Yeah, that was a really good one. Anyways, that's all the scary stories and Minecraft I have for you today. Stay tuned for the next one. Also, join the Discord. It's going to be the top link in the description. And if you liked today's video, drop a like and subscribe. If you didn't, I don't know what to tell you. Thanks for watching. Peace.